Hello everyone, I'm going to show you how to make a drawing out of this head, how to trace it. This is one of my favorite pencils. It's called Stabilo Aquarellable. It says it draws on glass, plastic and metal, and it's extremely hard, difficult to erase, so don't even try. It's dark and soft. It's regular lead, not lead, graphite pencil, and it's also could be diluted with water after the fact. So it comes off with water with a brush. So you could make wash out of it. So I like this head because how it's tilted. So there's a tilt in this head, not only this way, but also backwards, like away from us. So his chin and mouth is more prominent on this drawing. And also there is a little bit of a turn, right? So if you imagine center line, it will go through this way. So there's a little, there's a bit of an ellipse that's going that way. That's the turn of the form, right? So there are several things to be aware of. I'm going to trace it. I'm going to hold my pencil like this and start with loosely going about pushing in his hair. So you have one big shape to work with right away. It goes kind of spontaneous and quick. So there, done. Then I'm going to proceed tracing the outline of his ears and also the lines that I could see through right now, to define the shapes of his ears as if they are 3D objects, right? So this line comes from the front, goes to the back, this goes around the back, comes back to the front. And there is a depth that I'm going to shade. The other ear likewise goes away, comes back. It almost helps as you kind of narrate to yourself mentally or out loud as to what is going on as you're drawing this line. So you kind of saying back, front, sideways, because it helps your brain connect to your hand, and it helps you maintain an understanding as you're drawing what is it you're drawing, not just mechanical line, but you're cutting into space by making intentional directional moves with your hand, right? So I continue tracing big forms. So this is his big muscle that goes from behind the ear. You see one line here that signifies this muscle. You don't want it too dark, right? The more darkness you put on the line, the more significance it gets. So you want to keep this balance so nothing gets overwhelming attention without good reasoning behind it, right? Sort of thing. So this is his muscles. There's a clavicle. There's his Adam's apple right here. Make like a faint shadow. There is a shadow that's underneath his chin. More so on this side, I guess, than this side. But so a rotation figure. So you get the darkest shadow slightly off the edge, and this continues defining his neck shape. So this pencil is good because you could smudge it. Erasing it is not an option, so it just doesn't erase very well. So you have overall, let me see, shape. It looks like a Greek god to me. Anyway, so we continue. The other big shapes would be his eyebrows. You could outline them or just make a shadow or both. 1 and 2. Then we could get into the eyes. So top lid is slightly thicker and darker as a line representing it, and then there is a faint line. You could start fading into it and then make it darker and then fade out. Makes a pretty line for the lid. Then you could see there's a shadow that goes this way and follows his nose and ends right here and then continues. There's this surface of the nose, like the wing of the nose, and then around the nostril and back into the nostril, under the nose. The tip of his nose is very much a prominent feature here, so it's rounded out to there, and there is a little bit of a highlight right here. There is a highlight underneath his nose. You could see like this is a lighter spot right here. And you could either trace it very faintly or just remember that it's there, right? I'm going to continue with the eye. There is a little bit of a highlight in the corner of his eye. Then there is a lower lid that is tucked under the top lid. And then I'm going to trace the iris and the pupil right here. And note how the iris, the entire circumference of it is tucked into the bottom lid and the top lid. So you could see, so out of the entire circle that we imagine, only part of it is unobstructed by lids, right? And then you could darken it, you could darken the pupil as well, but leave the highlight so he's still looking at you. Then you see there's a highlight right here on top of his lid and right here on top of his lid. So make a mental or physical note of it. And then this shadow continues, wrapping around his brow, and there is a shadow here, and then there is a shadow, softer shadow on this side and underneath his eye, and we'll continue to the other eye. So there's a little bit of a darkness here on the white of the eye. It is in the shadow. If you start drawing the whites of the eye very, very white, it makes face very, very scary. So always remember there's a little bit of a shadow in the corners on the white of the eye, and there's a little bit of a shadow that goes underneath the top lid because it's thicker. Similar with the other eye. So the eyes are never quite exactly the same, even though it's the same person. But because of the angle of the head, they are different. The only thing you want to keep in mind is when you're drawing the irises and pupils is so that the person is still kind of looking at you or whatever intended and not cockeyed, hopefully. So there's a little spot for the tear corner, and then again a little shadow underneath the top lid, and there in the corner, and the bottom lid, lower lid, is tucked under the top lid, and there is a fold on top. Then there is a shadow that leads from underneath the eyebrow, and this is the eye socket shadow, really. So a little bit of highlight here. Again, make a mental note. But this shadow continues, follows his nose, goes around the tip of his nose right here, and around the nostril, and the nostril, there is darkness inside the nostril. You could make it darker, but don't go too crazy. It should be sort of medium of your dark scale. So certain things are dark, certain things are light, and certain things are in between. So start shading softly and you won't go wrong. And then you could go over and darken the intentionally where it belongs, right? So lips are very full in this fella. So I'm gonna start by defining where the upper lip ends, that little roll of fat that should be in between, right here. And then there are two volumes of two rolls in the bottom lip. They kind of like right here. So that will give you the line of his mouth. And here you see how this side of his mouth is same as the length of this eye. Because it's foreshortening, it's going away from us. On this side, they're shorter. So this distance is shorter than this distance. So his eye here is longer, and the side of his lip is longer. And this distance is longer than this distance. From the middle of his nose, from the center line, middle line, to this wing of the nose, this is shorter, and to this side, it is longer. Right, so that gives us the geography of his face. And I'm going to connect his lips. Softly. You don't really need those lines where I'm saying there are rolls inside. I'm just, for intellectual purposes, I'm telling you where they are. But for the drawing purposes, you don't need them on the drawing. So this part will be in the shadow, this part will be in the shadow. A little shadow here, a little shadow goes on top of his upper lip. But it's not a mustache, right? So there's a bit of a shadow on the bottom here. And a shadow that slides down to define his chin. Here you could have a little, like a fold of skin, almost gives him not the double chin, but the softness. It's not exactly hard in this angle on this photograph, so you could kind of break it up. I'm breaking it up so it doesn't form very strong line and indicates rather softness here as opposed to hardness. Right, and you could see how the edge of his face here, there's a highlight. There is also highlight on this very edge of his face, as well as here on the bottom chin. So you could potentially shade this and say that the shadow goes this way, but not the edge. And there is a shadow right here. And his forehead is pretty much in the shadow in this particular case. Right, so, and the, don't forget little highlights on his lips. You could position them thus, and you could darken this part. And here is a study of the face from the photograph, right? So you have everything positioned more or less correctly. You have an interesting angle. You have studied how the center line moves and where it falls, sort of in relation to the rest of the page. You could draw imaginary line through his eye line and see where that ends. Also, you have to understand that it kind of goes more this way because of there's a curvature to this line because of how his head is positioned, right? And there is a line that goes, imaginary line, sort of this way, because it exposes this surface. So it means his head is tilted backwards. So in relation to that, you could draw this line, and also how his mouth is also lined up in kind of like the same direction. Right? So I hope that helps. That's it.